There are many unique tracks on the NASCAR Cup Series schedule, and today we're going to be ranking them, all 28 tracks and layouts. This will be rankings off of fan outlook, racing itself, the schedule placement, amenities, my personal bias, anything in there. These will be 2024 NASCAR Cup tracks, no Xfinity or trucks, and it will not be different tracks that have raced in 2023 on back. So let's get into it, starting with number 28, which is, of course, the Texas Motor Speedway. Listen, I know it had a good 2023 race, or at least for Texas standards it did, but one or two good races does not erase decades of problems and about a decade of an awful configuration that it has. There's big potential that comes with Texas when it comes to the area itself and whatever SMI may turn it into, but the bad racing, the unpopularity of it, and everything that it's really put NASCAR fans through, as well as being an aging facility that needs some repairs, puts this track in last for me. In 27th is the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. This is a new market, a big market, LA, but the thing with this is it's just too many cars with the Clash the way that it is now, and NASCAR having that means it's too small and just does not fit what NASCAR is. It obviously wasn't built for NASCAR, it's a damn football stadium. But, you know, honestly, it has been kind of whatever after year one. The novelty has worn off for a lot of fans, and many are thinking that they should move on. Whether or not they will, because I know California track in that market at the moment may be a big question moving forward, and it has had some great moments, or at least great ideas, but trying something new only can work for so long. In 26th, we'll stay in California with the Sonoma Raceway. This is a long-standing road course, and with its pre-2020s layout, well, I like that as well. It has great moments in its history. The problem is, I think stage racing really spoiled it at Sonoma, and the next gen has not helped either. It's in a lull in the season as well, and it feels like it's gotten much less popular over the last 5 or 6 years, and is only going down even further, I think, in the overall fans' appreciation for it. In 25th is the Richmond Raceway. Listen, this has great strategy races, but many fans don't want to see that, especially with the short track. And it had many great moments, but those all came around 15 or so years ago. It's popped up every now and then, but in my opinion, it's lost the edge that it used to have that made it really special on the calendar. There's really not much to do with the track either. I've been there, and it's kind of a boring layout when it comes to fan amenities as well. Nothing really stands out about Richmond, and that's probably why they put it at the Easter date to try and bolster it up. But in my opinion, it's definitely in the lower 5. In 24th is the Iowa Speedway, and before you get your chainsaws out and go after me, let me explain. This is an unknown at the moment, especially with the next-gen car, and it could go up a ton, but there has not been NASCAR racing at this track for years, and it's definitely a track that is in the middle of nowhere. It's not the worst track ever. Honestly, it has a lot of upside, and the presentation of the IndyCar weekend, as well as the past racing being great and the fan excitement being up right now, means this track could skyrocket up this list. It's only down here because of the unknown, but even with that, it's still better than 4 other tracks in my opinion. Now, right ahead of that in 23rd is the North Wilkesboro Speedway, and again, let me explain. The return of this legacy track was a great move. The atmosphere and setup there in person is unmatched, and the history behind it goes all the way back to NASCAR's beginning. The problem is, in my opinion, this is currently living too much off of nostalgia, and it needs to have a modern identity. Yeah, it's great from 96 on back that it had that short track feel to it, and if you're able to preserve that and balance it like other tracks do, I like it. But the problem is the next gen too. With this repave and all the money into it, I think this track has a lot of upside, but it should be basically treated as a new racetrack rather than one coming back because of how much has changed in the last 30 or so years. 22nd comes Dover. Dover is a difficult track and it has a lot of personality to it, and it has had a strong crowd in recent years. The problem is the racing, though, can have a lot of issues. This track, in a lot of ways, can get overlooked, and it seems like even the TV partners do that a lot. The weather lately hasn't helped either. It feels like every other Dover race is rained out nowadays, and it just feels like a track that has had its best days behind it. Can it go up? Yes. SMI being in ownership maybe means it can get renovations, and that might be able to help a ton. It has a lot of character to it, so I do have a lot of upside, in my opinion, with this track. In 21st, we'll stay in the Northeast with the New Hampshire Motor Speedway. In my opinion, there are times that this has an underrated presence on the schedule. It has the ability to have some of the best racing of the year, no matter what car, and have some upset winners in the process. The audience is unique as well, and it's an audience that NASCAR, in my opinion, cannot afford to lose. The problem is the track and racing itself can get very dull. Entering the top 20 is the Nashville Superspeedway. This one has a pretty quick history at the moment, and the Nashville market is a good market to be in. With it being a bigger concrete track, it's also pretty unique, but I will say it's had a troubled history. The 2021 traffic issues are definitely not forgotten, and it has not helped with the start of the track itself. The outside the first 2 years weren't that great, though the amenities have been improved immensely over the time that this race has been on the schedule. I feel like the traffic issues have been better, and if they're able to continue this for a couple more years, I think Nashville can really build an identity and presence for itself. As for number 19, it's a Charlotte Roval. This one, again, has a pretty short history, but it started out with a bang. And from those that I talk to that go to this race every year, there's a reason they go every year. It has a great atmosphere to it, and it's a unique track both in the playoffs and just in general. The problem is that I think that the luster has really worn off when it comes to the novelty of the Roval, and it tends to produce more chaotic racing than anything, which in my opinion is oversaturated in the NASCAR schedule. And 18th is the Worldwide Technology Raceway. This one has amazing fan amenities, and the atmosphere there is awesome as well because you have a loyal hometown crowd. Solid racing has been at this track the last 2 years, and I feel like it's earned a place on the NASCAR schedule. The biggest con when it comes to this is the terrible power grid and internet. For a place called Worldwide Technology, there seems to be a lot of power outages and internet outages, but the St. Louis crowd comes in force. But I will say, go Cubs go. In 17th is the Phoenix Raceway. This one is up on the list not because of the racing. The racing is honestly pretty terrible, and it has no championship feel to it or urgency, no matter what position the driver is in at this track. The amenities and the loyal hometown crowd is the only reason that it's up above a lot of the tracks below it. And in my opinion, it's only going to get further down as this track, in my opinion, has nowhere to go but down. In 16th is the Michigan International Speedway. This one's been resurgent as of late, and it's one of the fastest tracks on the schedule. There's great amenities around it as well, and tents, and there's tons of space to move around. The problem is, I think, two things. One, the repave took way too long to come in, and the traffic getting out is terrible. In 15th is Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Now, I feel like the hype for this one has died down over the last couple of years. The market seems to be okay with it, not necessarily excelling, but it's not the worst in NASCAR. And the multi-groove racing makes it really interesting as long as the weather conditions allow. It feels like this used to be one of the best mile and a halves, and now while it's still good, it's probably middle of the pack. The problem is they're spread too thin with 2 dates. You can tell the crowd has suffered for both races, and the racing has felt a bit diminished over the last couple years. In 14th is the Homestead Miami Speedway. Listen, the racing is probably in the top 5 when it comes to NASCAR tracks. That is the only reason, in my opinion, this track is up, because the racing is the biggest redeemable quality and the best quality for the biggest quality as well. The problem is there's a lot of cons. First off, the feel is gone. There is no good feel to it anymore. It feels like any other race, and it's shown by how many people skip going to it or watching it on TV. It needs to be the finale. It feels empty. The atmosphere and the crowd itself both are. There's a reason Dale Jr. pushed so hard to get Homestead in a good light and race there. And it's just run down and old. I know a lot of people who go every year to Homestead, and it's been the same for a decade and a half. and it's only getting worse. This track needs a huge facelift, and soon. In 13th is the Chicago Street Course. First off, the biggest pro for this is getting into the market of Chicago. That has helped a ton, and NASCAR, despite the odds being against them, managed to have an amazing event there. It was a spectacle, and there were storylines that came out of it. The problem is you don't know yet if that can be replicated. There were a lot of rose-colored glasses when it came to looking at the racing itself because of the great finish and storylines that came out of it. And the rain also probably really helped make this a better race than it probably would have been otherwise. The layout is kind of boring, and that is something that is going to be tested hopefully next year, because I hope it doesn't rain on everybody there. The city officials also don't help either, but it's probably more because they're just not the NASCAR crowd. In 12th is the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. There's a huge hype for the return to the Brickyard, tons of history, and the next gen has upside, as we'll talk about in a moment with some other tracks. The problem is, just like Chicago, except for a longer period of time, fans are looking back with rose-colored glasses. The racing was nothing special at this track, and people, I think, are going to get a rude awakening in a lot of ways when Indy comes back in July. Also, well, it'll make any crowd look bad. 150,000 could show up to this race, and the place would still be half full. Fans need to understand that it's not going to have the greatest optics. In 11th is Pocono. Pocono is, again, a resurgent track. The atmosphere and the crowd are top tier, and honestly, it covers up a lot of the spread out racing we can have and the bad weather. But the Pocono crowd deserves to have a shout out, as this track has ascended up the ranks the last couple years, and the racing honestly has been pretty good at it. In 10th is the Atlanta Motor Speedway. Now, each race, in my opinion, has gotten better. Every one has beat the last since the reconfiguration into a super speedway. And the crowd seems to be getting better as well. They're really taking to this. It's unique. A 1.5 mile super speedway is not something that we have, and it feels like it's the fruition of NASCAR's attempts through the years with the 550 package at 1.5 miles. It's an acquired taste, though. It's going to be difficult for a lot of old school fans to get into it, and I would still take old Atlanta in a heartbeat. And it tends to be just a little bit of a wreck fest, too. In 9th is the Circuit of the Americas. Now, I know a lot of people on TV aren't the biggest fan of this track, and Fox might not do the best job covering it. But I'm telling you, at the track, it's amazing. From the go-karts to the Ferris wheel to different things all over to do, there is always something that can keep you busy when the racing isn't going on at COTA. And the amenities are top tier. The racing, in my opinion, still is generally good, and it's the most modern track in all of NASCAR. The cons for this, honestly, aren't too many. It tends to turn into a demo derby at the end, but I think a few rule changes could fix that, and there is a lot of walking, but that's just something that happens at every road course. Now, in 8th is the best road course in NASCAR, Watkins Glen. Traditionally, it's usually a great race, and it makes for a lot of great moments and a lot of great winners in the process as well. It has strong roots in racing, NASCAR included, and honestly, if the next-gen car can do better, I think this track could be in the top 5 easily. In 7th is a Charlotte Motor Speedway. This is a track, and in the Coke 600, a race that a couple years ago I said was really falling off and didn't have anything special about it. And boy, has the next gen changed that narrative. The Coke 600 is one of the best races of the year the last 2 years, and I am honestly now looking more forward to that race than I am the Daytona 500. The racing with the next gen might be the best this car has produced, and it feels special, both for those who are there and those watching at home. I do not want to miss this race. People want the oval over the Roval in the playoffs now. And that's not something you can say 2 years ago. So this one is very special. In 6th is Kansas. Kansas, in my opinion, is the best in the next gen and Gen 6 as well. It is multi-groove, there's plenty of comers and goers, and it really feels like an old school mid-2000s NASCAR race. Outside the track is above average as well. There's plenty of things to do right near the track, and I think they're even building more and more up on that. The Hollywood Casino helps as well, and I think the only con is that the traffic can be difficult, but Kansas has gotten better at that too. At the track and on TV, this is a can't-miss show. Now, entering the top 5 is the Darlington Raceway. And in my opinion, this track racing and everything about it keeps getting better. I think it kind of lost its way a little bit in the Gen 6 era, but they really fixed it towards the end, and it's more of a car issue than anything. It's been relatively easy to get around there as well when you're in person, and there's tons to do, which really surprised me for such an old school track. And they've really balanced the old school versus the new school with the throwback weekend and feel of the Southern 500 as well, but still moving forward with NASCAR. And again, it's another one that I just do not want to miss. The only problem is if you're going there, it is in the middle of nowhere and cell reception might be difficult, which is more and more important now for a modern audience. In fourth is the Martinsville Speedway. What I love about Martinsville, as it is my favorite track, is that it has a local feel to it. I always tell people the first time I went to Martinsville when I was 18 years old, still a senior in high school, and it was for my birthday. And the feel I had was the same as a high school football stadium. Everything about it, from the racing to the small, compacted atmosphere, everything just felt like you were part of a community. The hot dogs are amazing. Don't listen to the hot dog heretics when it comes to saying it's bad. They're awesome. There's a reason they're famous. And the racing is normally great. Yeah, it suffered a bit with the next gen, but I don't think that takes away 73 years of amazing racing in NASCAR. It has withstood the test of time. And honestly, you should really take it in even when you're leaving, because it's going to be a while to get out, because it's probably the worst traffic getting out of a track in all of NASCAR. In third is the Talladega Superspeedway. This is the biggest and the baddest track on the NASCAR schedule. It's famous for so many reasons, and on top of that, it's just legendary to watch on the track, hear the names, stories, everything about Talladega. It has a legacy to it. It has an atmosphere to it. Everything about this racetrack is unique. Talladega Boulevard is the biggest party in all of NASCAR. And I could tell you all the things that have been seen and recorded there, but I would probably get taken off of YouTube. It probably has the best of the pack racing, too, of all the super speedways. And honestly, the track could still get better. There's a lot of controversies all the time. That's just something it's known for. And it is in a low-end area when it comes to no power for lights or anything like that. The facility could definitely be improved, is what I'm saying. In second is Bristol. The Bristol Motor Speedway is one of the greatest places to see a sporting event. Doesn't matter what it is. The great racing, no matter what car, also helps as well. The multi-groove racing of the COT era is the worst racing Bristol's ever put on, and it still clears probably all but 5 or so tracks in the NASCAR schedule. It's a great place to go as a fan because of the fan areas, as well as the fact that there's not a bad seat in the house. And it's relatively easy to get parked there. There's so many legendary nicknames and different things about it as well. Bristol has to be in everybody's top 3 and on everybody's bucket list, especially the famous Bristol night race. Now, in the first spot is Daytona. Now, I don't know who would not put Daytona up top. It, in every way, is one of, if not the best tracks and facilities in NASCAR and all of sports. There is some of the best racing out there. Every year, Daytona puts on a spectacle of a show, and it has amazing fan amenities as well, both outside the track and inside it. It also is one of the richest when it comes to NASCAR history, with the Daytona 500, the Great American Race being the biggest race in all of America, actually, when it comes to viewership. And overall, it has the best mix of racing and modernizing a track. The inside of Daytona, after the Daytona Rising in the stadium part of it, is amazing. I've been to newer stadiums for baseball games, football games, you name it, and this clears all of them. Love my Minnesota Vikings. US Bank Stadium's the closest to Daytona, but Daytona has the best stadium in all of sports. Now with that, I want to pass it on to you and ask, what is your favorite NASCAR track? Let me know down in the comments below. And while you're at it, leave a like on this video, share this video, and subscribe to this channel for more great NASCAR content. Thank you so much to all my channel members for your continued support. And until next time, have a good one.